All right, so I'm not going to use the term punt. We're going to change course and do this audio style because our video capabilities weren't happening for us today. But I'm Amy Fast, superintendent of Dayton School District, and we had a community forum planned for tomorrow evening, February 6th, and decided to change it to a format that everyone could access on their own time. Because we do know safety and security has been an area of concern and one that the community wanted updates on throughout the year. So we will be sending this Tuesday, February 6th, and I've got a team of leaders with me from the school district who are going to speak to various topics from facilities infrastructure to grade school security and safety measures to junior high and high school and to cyber security, and then I will also address ways that we plan to move forward in the future in Dayton. So with that, I'm going to kick it to Otto to talk about district-wide infrastructure. And Otto, if you want to introduce yourself and what your role is before you start, that'd be awesome.
Thank you. My name is Otto Rice. I'm the maintenance director, talking about district-wide infrastructure upgrades that are coming up. To start with, we are already in the process of getting gates around the perimeters of our school locked up tight, and we are planning on adding fencing as needed or raising fencing. We also plan to expand our security camera system to make visible on our cameras a lot of areas that right now we have no way of monitoring during the day. We also want to get panic buttons into the offices of our grade school and our high school that can be used in emergencies. We need to add intercoms to certain rooms that don't have intercoms at this point. We want to expand our current access control system to allow key fobs to be used to unlock or lock doors up. And we also want to expand our burglar alarm system.
And Otto, I want to put you on the spot a little bit, and maybe Richard too, but one of the constraints that we have when it comes to security and safety, particularly at the secondary level, is the number of independent buildings that exist from the junior high to the high school, the different 30s, 40s, 50s, gym, ag buildings and such. And so earlier this year, we took a little walk along with Dana at the grade school with the sheriff's department just to talk about various ways that we could approach a campus like ours during the school day. So when you talk about fencing and gates and locks, I know we've talked a lot about not wanting the schools to feel like prisons, but also wanting to make sure that there are barriers in place should someone have ill intent that would slow down like a violent intruder, let's say. So when we talk about gates, Richard, I know you're going to have a chance to talk about the high school here soon, but can you talk a little bit about the importance of locked doors and locked gates at the secondary level, especially?
And for us, we look, it's one of those preventative measures. And so by having that, it's not to give that feel at all of, prison, anything like that. It's to prevent access to our campus for people who aren't supposed to be there. And that could be anyone, right? That
Sure.
There's times where, there's somebody, it's a big campus, and so somebody walking their little dog and they want to cut through because where they live, and it's like, hey, the gate's shut for a reason, that type of thing. And so it is hard because we also want to allow our students in, right? We want our kids here. We're always on them and avoiding, tardies. And so depending on where they park, trying to get them access to campus at the times that they're, supposed to have access. And so just working hand in hand with facilities to create those systems and having the supervision necessary to have those gates open at certain times, locked at certain times, and allowing that access.
So essentially knowing who's on your campus at all times is the end goal.
Yep.
And deterring anyone from thinking that it's an easy place to access.
Just, letting them know, it's closed campus unless you're supposed to be here.
Yep. All right, Dana, you want to introduce yourself?
All right. Dana Simons. I'm the principal at the elementary school. And like Otto said, we have worked hard to have a secure perimeter We have a fence that goes around our campus with locked gates, and our staff have keys that are checked out to them. The doors on our campus are locked, and staff use fobs to be able to access those. We have, our locked front entry. Pre-water damage was functioning very well for visually confirming that someone should be in our building before opening the doors to them, and then still keeping them in a secure lobby area while we talked with them to make sure they were where they were supposed to be. Right now, we are using a doorbell, and our staff are visually confirming that someone should be in our building and should be granted access. All of our classrooms, the doors are locked, and we use what's called a lock block. And that means that the door is locked, and all you have to do is pull it shut to completely lock it. But we have little kids, and, we want everyone to be able to go to the restroom and go to get a drink, and we don't want to have to get up and open the door each time. So lock blocks allow for that to happen. And in an emergency situation, they just get flipped over so that the door can close completely and latch. A new process that we're going to be doing here pretty soon is having the outer doors of our campus locked, even if it's inside the fencing. And so, and that's just a secondary preventative measure that if someone was able to get through the gate system, then they couldn't just walk right into the building. This will just require the use of fobs, and John Bixler, our tech director, will be setting up some frequently used times for the doors to stay unlocked. We have security cameras as well. They point at our entry areas. And then we have a few practices that we use because we have littles, and it's a little different than what the junior high and high school have to do, because they have students that travel on their own independently, and we have littles, and we want them to stay supervised. So we do what's called warm handoffs, where classes are escorted and adults pass their students from one adult to another. And any student that travels without an adult travels inside the school. We do the district-wide. We do a monthly practice of drills, evacuation drills, fire, earthquake, lockdown. And at least twice a year, we practice the lockout and lockdown drills. We do one earthquake drill in October during the National Earthquake Preparedness Month. We have all visitors check in at the office, and they sign in through a new electronic system. Also was working perfectly before the water damage, and now struggles every once in a while. But this sends an alert to the person the visitor signed in to visit, and it also pulls from any restricted lists for the type of people we don't want to be on our campus. Just as a second, another level of precaution. All our staff wear their ID badges, and substitutes have ID badges, so that it's easy to tell which adults are supposed to be there and why. And we have radios now that we use in emergency situations, most commonly used at the grade school for injuries on the playground or someone got sick.
Awesome. Thank you, Dana. And then Richard to talk about the junior high and high school.
Perfect. I'm Richard Cedar, principal, Dayton Junior Senior High. We have the perimeter fencing and gates like we discussed. We've talked about ideas to help with some of that with the automatic locking and unlocking throughout. The cost associated with that is pretty high, just based on then it all has to be on electrical. So that piece might be down the road, but definitely something that we're looking at when we're looking at options for allowing that those to be unlocked and locked. We have the vestibule up front at the front office where you have to have a fob or get buzzed in. Even once in the building, you still can't get access to the front office or into the main building until you are cleared through our front office. And so that's part of that measure as well. That ID scanner for visitors when they sign in lets folks know if there's any concerns with that person being in the building. We have staff supervision and the morning at breaks, at transition times, at lunch, and then in the afternoon, including bus duty throughout all that. Like Dana talked about, our doors are locked. You need the keys or fob. We also have those lock blocks on our classroom doors. Thank you, Otto. Nice job installing all those. Staff love it because, again, they can have their classroom door locked, and then in a situation that we need to lock them down, we just move the little tab and they shut and lock. So we also have direct contact with, we call him our school resource officer, Deputy Twitchell, is back in the mix, but either through him, just a text, phone call on his cell, or we go directly to dispatch. And if there's any concerns, we also do our practice drills on a regular basis, and on the back of our IDs are the different safety protocols, even on the back of our sub IDs, so everybody's on the same page. We have those radios again. Thank you, Dr. Fast, for getting us those radios.
For the community's sake, what do radios allow you to do at the junior high school?
It's able to communicate with any of the folks on supervision all at once instantly without having to do text message, things like that. We were using our cell phone, but you're either calling one person, trying to text a group while managing the situation, or you can easily just radio for
it allows you to respond to an issue.
It's real easy. You don't have to take your eyes off the situation or step away from anything. It's just really nice having that access. That also allows access if we need to get a hold of anybody else in the district who has those radios. So we also have our emergency protocols and procedures, and teachers have copies of those handbooks. Just clear communication with staff when any concerns come up, or if they have concerns, even based on the window, they're like, hey, there's some person over at centers that you guys might want to come see what's going on. Just things like that. Very aware, right? It's that awareness piece. Just keeping everybody aware of security and safety, and working on ways to prevent that. I also tie into that for us. It's just our student support services. So having access to school counselors, having access to mental health needs, all the things that we can do to support our students and families, as well as our just general behavior management systems, what our expectations are for our students, during those transition times, and how to behave during all that, helps with that safety and security. And tying into that too, hall passes. So that's kind of like the student version of the badge, is just having, if somebody's out and about, knowing they're supposed to be out and about.
Right.
Or supposed to be on campus.
All right. Mr. Bixler in the hot seat.
John Bixler, Director of Technology. So there's a bunch of things that we do tech-wise for safety and security. We'll start with the basic, the data loss prevention. So that has to do with our Google Drive and files that are in there that have sensitive information like social security numbers and driver's license numbers. It doesn't happen very often, if at all, but we do have protections in place that if those documents are in Google Drive somewhere, they can't be shared with anybody else. We also limit software installation, so only Mr. Arredondo or myself can install software, and that's regulated by insurance. They state who can and who cannot install software. So a lot of what we do is industry best practice or required by our cyber insurance company. We have two-factor authentication for our staff email, and our student email is monitored with BARC, and that's for cyberbullying. We're also a member of the Student Data Privacy Consortium, and that has to do with how our student data is shared with our applications and our software. So a lot of our main software have agreements signed that they're going to follow like the industry standard of what we do with student data. How is it released? How is it protected? At rest, is it encrypted? And then we back up our servers every night, and then we also have a backup stored with the Willamette ESD. And then we segment our network from staff and students and guests. So guests can't see staff servers, and students can't either.
Did all that make sense to you guys? Any questions for John?
Yeah, it's all nerdy
You live
stuff.
in that world. So
that is my world. So a lot of those words were difficult, but that's my world.
That's helpful. So I know that what we've been talking about is a lot of logistics, but I am a firm believer that the most important way to keep students safe is by knowing them and having connections with our students and families. Having staff at the front doors of buildings and teachers taking the time to check in with kids and counselors being aware when kids aren't doing well is probably our most important safety measure, especially when you look at, unfortunately, the trend of school violence in our country. It's a sad reality, but we do need to be cognizant of the fact that students whose well-being are intact are typically not a threat to the school. But when looking at the potential of students causing harm to someone, themselves or others in a school setting, knowing our students well is the primary safety measure that we have to take. I wanted to elaborate on some of the things that we talked about in this slide deck, but one is radios. One of the things that goes along with what John was saying as far as student confidentiality is that not only do we have radio protocols that keep us from saying students' full names whenever possible on the radios, but they are encrypted so that community members can't listen in to know the goings-on of the school district. We have multiple channels, so the custodians have their own channel along with the district office, and each level, or building rather, has their own radio channel. But we have a district-wide channel in case we need to communicate quickly with each other, and also an emergency channel that allows anyone who holds a radio to override the whole system and let anyone on radio know that there's an emergency within the district. Should a school need to go into lockdown, need to evacuate, should there be some kind of natural disaster. So the radios do allow us to respond more quickly in a crisis situation. One of the things that Otto and I have been working on and that we're going to bring to the leadership team and then eventually our other emergency responders in the county is an updated emergency response protocol for our whole district, which includes not only how to respond in an earthquake, a fire, a violent intruder, but also has maps of our schools, shows where our fire extinguishers are, AED devices, different things. So if a police or fire department has to respond to an emergency, they will have that emergency protocol as well. And we will be able to respond in a much more effective and efficient manner. Updated in that will also be our when we have to evacuate, or if we should have to evacuate students and relocate them to another place in Dayton, a reunification plan so that parents will be informed on where they would be picking up their children and how that system would look. Should they have to go to a church or a community center or a different building to pick up their kids, that'll be coming out here shortly in the next few weeks. And then, as I mentioned, we don't like talking about the potential of violence in our schools, and yet we have an obligation, a professional responsibility to prepare for that in hopes that it's never something that we have to actually respond to in real life. So it's been a while since staff have been trained on how to respond, other than their regular drills, actually trained in research-based practices to respond to emergencies. So things like run, hide, fight training, while it's never fun for staff, unfortunately, is the reality that something we're going to need to be engaging in the coming years, just to make sure we're all up to date on the best practices in emergency situations. Again, never fun to talk about, but always important to be proactive in training with. Along with this, I don't know, we call it podcast slideshow. audio something. We're going to be including a link to a survey where we want you to let us know what's working, any questions you might have, additional concerns you have, and that will be shared with our leadership team so that they can continue to vet our current practices and see if there's additional practices we should implement to continue to make our schools as safe as possible. So please do respond to that survey if you get a chance. And then finally, we will have our crew here at our early to our board meeting on Tuesday, February 13th at 6:15. We'll be available to do a little Q&A if there are additional questions that you have that you would like answered in person. We talk about the Q&A being we questions and not me questions, meaning if you have a question specific to your student or your family, you can contact your building principal directly. But if you have questions that pertain to other students and other families, please bring those to the Q&A on February 13th, and we will do our best to answer them. Anything you guys can think of in addition to what we discussed? All right. Thank you much.
Thank you.